depending on your wristwatch. Mine is still good morning. So good morning, everybody. Praise the Lord. I'll start by appreciating the organizers of the program for inviting me to talk on the topic. I also want to appreciate the pastor in charge of the church, as well as the team that put this all together. This is an exceedingly important program, and I seriously wished I had this sort of talk when I was your age. I probably would have been free from several anxious moments that I went through growing up. Though I'm a politician, sort of, I wouldn't do all the protocols by recognizing everybody, otherwise the 20 minutes I have will be over before we start the talk. So I'm going to go straight into the talk. Word or handshakes, what do I do? And I want you to be very, very attentive. There's something we call motivation. I want to keep you motivated to listen to the end, because I'm going to ask one or two questions at the end, and whoever gets the question right, we also get a cash prize. Yes, I can see I've gotten your attention. Okay, I won't tell you how much the money is. So we're going to talk about being worried or experiencing anxiety as a young person. And what does this mean? Is it a problem? Could it be a problem? And what do you need to do when that occurs, when that happens? So we'll start by looking at what being worried means. I'm glad she asked you about your classmates. Are they perfect? Is there one of them that you think, wow, this guy is a weirdo? We usually have one guy that we think is weird. Okay? Do you know somebody in your class that is weird? Can I tell you that somebody also thinks that you are weird? So in that case, we are all weird. Okay? So to be weird means to be strange, unusual. You know, you are kind of odd. People think you are odd, or you perceive yourself as being odd. You think you are bizarre, that you are not exactly like every other person. But the truth is, there is no one that is exactly like every other person. You know about the gene or genome, that we're made up of genes, DNA and all that. There are no two equal DNAs. Everything is different. So feeling odd, feeling different from others is a perfectly normal feeling. Now, about anxiety or being anxious, that is also a very common thing in young people like you. Teenage years is filled with a lot of anxiety. You really don't know where life is taking you. You don't even know your place in life at all. So you get anxious about almost everything. You are anxious about how you look. You are anxious about how you smell. You are anxious about things you wear. Am I wearing it right? Am I doing it right? Am I talking right? You are concerned about everything about you. In fact, you are wondering, is my face normal? And then you start showing your parents, I think I have something in this corner. They say, it is okay. Is any one of you doing that? You start telling them, I think I have this, I have that. Okay? That is being anxious. Being worried, being fearful. Sometimes about practically nothing, sometimes about something in particular. Now, because I'm a mental health specialist, I want to bring this word and anxious into the mental health perspective. Especially because most mental conditions, mental disorders usually start at the teenage years. They start around 14, 15, 16, 17. So we really need to know whether the feeling I'm having is one that could result in a mental health condition or is just perfectly normal. So what are those weird feelings that one can have that may have some mental health connotation? Sometimes you may hear voices of people that you cannot see. Someone is talking to you, you look around, there's absolutely nobody there. And then you start feeling strange and wondering what is going on. Sometimes you see things and you ask others, can't you see that? They all say they can't see it. Sometimes you feel everyone around you does not like you. Sometimes you think they are trying to harm you, that your classmates don't like you, they are plotting evil against you. Sometimes you feel strange sensations all over your body. At other times, people might feel very sad for a very long time, for no good reason. You ask them, why are you sad? And they say, I really don't know, okay? Instead of answering, they just start crying again, okay? Feeling sad for no good reason. Sometimes they feel life is not worth living, and at the height of it, some might think even dying is better than being alive. Those are some of the weird feelings that young people sometimes have. But the other side is anxious. What does this mean? For an anxious person, in a mental health perspective, you are unduly worried. And then you have this pervasive fear. Sometimes you can't explain it. You are almost always on the edge. You feel tense, you feel pensive most of the time. And then you are unusually afraid of things and situations around you. Now, if we go back to the weird feelings that I mentioned earlier, there are three possibilities, probably more. One, it may be that this young person is beginning to develop, we call it prodrome. That is the beginning of a mental illness. That is why he's going through all these strange feelings. So the sort of mental illness that the person could be about to develop is depression or psychosis. But the good news is, most of the time when you have all these weird feelings, when you have all these strange sensations, when everything seems unusual, actually everything is also entirely normal. So it's difficult for people to know whether the weird feelings I'm having is the one that will lead to mental illness or is the one that is actually completely normal. That is why it is essential that you share those feelings with the people around you. You share those feelings not only with your friends who may not know any better than you, but you share it with your parents. You share it with your teachers, and they will be able to direct you. If they think there's something awkward about that feeling, then they can direct you to a doctor or to any health worker that will help you. Now, if the feelings are that of persistent anxiety, it could be possible that you are also about to develop an anxiety disorder, and there are several of them, as I've listed. The most interesting one is the phobic anxiety disorder, where the individual is so afraid of particular situations. One of such situations is if they should ask you to come and address your class, something you know very well. The day they ask you, just take the microphone and recite this poem, a poem that you've recited 20 times before. You just get there and you freeze up, and your voice will start going shaking. You start sweating. In fact, some people even collapse when they ask them to do that. They'll just fall down, and the whole class will, turn upside down and say, she has collapsed, or he has collapsed. Okay, that is called social anxiety disorder. So phobic anxiety is common. Some other people, probably just for one cockroach in the house, they will run away from the house and not come back inside the house. Okay? The rest of us will just kill the cockroach and move on. Some may even hit the cockroach self. Okay? But someone with phobic anxiety disorder will be so afraid of one thing. It could be cockroach, it could be spider, it could be heights, it could be rats, okay? But excessive fear of something of that nature is phobic anxiety disorder. I'll move on and spend some few minutes on depression because it's extremely important. One, because it's common among young people. Two, because it's disabling. Disabling in the sense that when you are depressed, you cannot do your normal duties as a student. Three, because it could actually lead to death if nothing is done. So it's a life-threatening condition. So you need to know a little bit about depression. Like I said, it's quite common, affecting roughly 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 people globally. And it's 2 times commoner among women and females compared to males. We really don't know why this is so. Okay? Almost always in every population, 2 times commoner among females. Why do people get depressed? Sometimes it runs in the family. The parent could have had it, and then the child is also prone to developing the same illness. Imbalances of chemicals could be responsible. More importantly, what we call life events, changes in life situation. One of them could be the fact that somebody loses his or her job, but that would be an elderly or an older person. But for young people, it could be that you fail an exam that you think you have prepared extremely well for, and the person slides into depression, and all other symptoms will start coming on, which might be really dangerous for a young person to have. Sometimes because we're young and we're beginning to notice the opposite sex around us, and then you will start developing crushes. Yeah, people are smiling. You want to identify your crush for me? No. Okay. But it's real. Once you have 13, 14, 15, crushes start developing. It's quite unfortunate for boys like Loyola boys who are all boys' school. They have nobody to crush on. Okay. That was my lot too. I went to Loyola, so not so good for. But those who are in mixed schools, crushes will start happening. Sometimes, unfortunately, the person you are crushing on is not crushing on you. That is the first lesson in life, that not everybody will like us back. Okay? Unfortunately, it will come to you as a rude shock. You that your parents have been pampering. Ayide, Akode, fine boy. You've been pampering you, telling you are the finest thing in this world. And then you went and tell the girl, I think I like it. Say, hey, you, me and you, are we mates? Go to your level. You don't even know your level. That can be very crushing on a young person's ego. And people have even attempted to die because they were refused by their peers for some reasons. So being jilted, having your love advance being rejected can result in depression. Young people have made attempts at suicide just because of this. Some major illnesses also can cause depression. I've also made this bold. Use of alcohol or other drugs can actually result in depression. It can result in psychosis. It can result in anxiety disorder. Several other things. I had a young boy in UI 300 level, good course. His very first week of using cannabis, Igbo, was the week he developed anxiety disorder, a very bad one that he would not have had but for the fact that he smoked cannabis. And he never recovered, never completed his school, and it was that bad. So please stay away from drugs. You'll get more on that shortly. What are the symptoms of depression? How do you know if somebody is depressed? What do you see? They are feeling sad most of the times. They are not happy. Sometimes also, they will lose interest in everything around them. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to write their notes. They don't want to do anything. In fact, they don't even want to sleep. Sleep is not good. Appetite is poor. They are not eating well. They are not friendly like they used to be. They become slow and sluggish. They feel empty. They are not enjoying anything. They lose interest in everybody. Sometimes they start blaming themselves for everything that is happening around them. Some will say, oh, my parents who are fighting, it is because of me. The person who died somewhere on our street, I'm the cause of that. And when they say it in the wrong place, they will label them as witches, young witches or wizards. They will say all sorts of things about them. In some places, they will start caning them with a broom, that you are a witch, you must confess. Now that you said you know something about the person that died, okay? Most of the times, this is just out of depression. We call it feelings of guilt or delusion of guilt. In young people, it's all usually about, I know about somebody's death. I'm the one who caused this. I'm flying in the night. I go to meetings with people. Oftentimes, it's all rubbish. The young mind is full of fantasy. You've seen Harry Potter before? Great. That is the way a young person's mind works. All sorts of magic and all that. So when you see too much of that, you begin to say it about yourself. You will just remove Harry Potter from the role and put yourself there. And when you say it in the wrong place, they will beat you so much and say, oh, this person is a witch. We must deal with the person. Oftentimes that happens in depression. Then crying. They cry too much. And several times in a day. They cry morning, afternoon, night. Just like food. As they eat in the morning, afternoon, and night, they will also be crying almost every time. So crying is common in a depressed young person. Of course, there are several other things, but the one that is also very important is suicidal thoughts and feelings. What is suicide? Okay? Yeah, they quickly come. Yep. Come. Oh, someone else is here. Sorry.
It's when someone goes and kills himself.
Please, a round of applause for him. A bigger round of applause for him. Now, when people are depressed, they feel there is no tomorrow, that life is finished. So they start thinking about dying. Then eventually some will think about killing themselves. I'm sure you've been reading in the papers a lot of people that have been killing, young people that have been killing themselves, maybe because they failed one exam or the other. Okay? Suicide is having thoughts and actually making attempts to kill oneself. That is very common in depression. And that is why it's important that we talk about it. But is there a way out when somebody is depressed? Yes. The first step is discuss with people around you. Discuss with your parents. If your parents don't get it, as some parents don't get it, you know, some parents, they just don't get it. Anything you tell them, okay? So if your parents don't get it, talk to your teacher. Or teachers, not just one. A counselor in school, talk to them. They are more likely to understand. And from there, if they also don't get it, talk to your pastors. Okay, you go to church at least every Sunday. Talk to the pastor. Most times, pastors are trained to understand what people are going through. Your parents are not trained to understand what people are going through. They are also going through their own. They don't even know what other people feel. But people who help people, like pastors, already know what people are going through. So you can talk to them. They will direct you to the right help. Sometimes depression is mild, and with just counseling, the depression will blow away and the person will continue to live a good life. Sometimes it can be moderate when you may need to see a doctor to even get better. So please, if you're having any one of those feelings I described earlier and the others on the slide, please talk to somebody. Don't keep it to yourself, and don't wait for other eventualities. Now let's talk briefly about anxiety. But before we do that, suicide, I mentioned that is extremely important, and it could be a consequence of depression. In fact, 90% of suicides are caused by depression. So that means if we treat depression, we're going to save 90% of the people who are dying by suicide. So it's extremely important we know about this. Now, this is just to show you that suicide does not respect anybody. Young, old, middle-aged, educated, uneducated. This person was a pilot of an airline, a co-pilot actually, German Wings, about 3-4 years ago, I think about 4 years ago, was a co-pilot. He was depressed, and he hid the illness rather than to come forward and talk to his doctors. He was hiding. He didn't tell anybody. The more you hide depression, the more likely you are going to die from it. So you need to come out and talk. While hiding, he gets so suicidal that he wanted to die. And he chose to die while flying this plane with the pilot. Unfortunately, there are about 50-something children who had gone on holiday on that same flight. He simply waited for the main pilot to get up from the seat to urinate, and before the guy came back, he locked the door of the cockpit and drove the plane into the rock. So sometimes when people are suicidal, they don't want to die alone. They want to take a lot of people with them. So that is why if you know someone who is suicidal, don't leave them to themselves, because they might harm more people than themselves. Don't say, oh, it's your problem. If you like, die. Some parents, when their children say, I'll kill myself, is it? Nobody dies with you now. Should you just kill yourself? But it's not always like that. Sometimes a single death can cause several other deaths and pain. So we need to be conscious of anybody that has suicidal feelings or thoughts around us. Sometimes I say the way that our downfall drivers drive, I know they are suicidal. Because no normal person will drive the way some of them drive sometimes. Okay, and these are some other people. This was a comedian, very popular, very successful, also died by suicide. I'm sure you must have seen one of his movies before. So the fact that somebody is smiling does not mean that they are not depressed, okay? And the fact that they are making you laugh does not mean that when they get home, they don't go home to cry. They may make you laugh in public and they are crying in their closets. Also, I said it doesn't respect anybody. Doctors also die by suicide, any profession. And Third Mainland Bridge had practically become the capital of suicide in Nigeria now. But for the recent intervention, they've already put some barriers so that you can't jump anymore. There's something we call copycat suicide. When somebody dies by one popular means and everybody talked about it, the next person who wants to die also wants to do the same thing. So luckily the government in Lagos has responded to this, and we've not had any further jumps from that bridge recently. Suicide pacts, I pray we won't get there, courtesy of NEPA, because suicide pacts are usually achieved online. Internet, when you have regular internet, then you can now advertise that, oh, I want to die by suicide. Is there anyone who also wants to die? And then like 4 or 5 people, sometimes they grow to about 20 teenagers in Japan, and they will give specification, we're going to this place and we're all going to kill ourselves. Okay, that's what a suicide pact is. But God willing, and by His grace, that is not happening to us. We don't even have the internet penetrance for people to start discussing that much. It's only good business that people do online, not... So all these things are happening. Be aware of it. And if you find someone who is going through it, be the whistleblower. Sometimes they tell you, don't tell anybody. If the person should die, you will carry the guilt for a very long time. So once it tells you and say, don't tell anybody, please tell somebody about it. And then, if these thoughts of dying are going through your mind for any reason, there is an initiative from a colleague of mine in Lut. We call it Suicide Research and Prevention Initiative. There's a hotline, or there are several hotlines that you can call. And those are the numbers of those hotlines, and there is one in Hausa. When you call those hotlines, anywhere you are in Nigeria, it will contact a psychiatrist or a psychologist nearby to give you a call and help you to counsel you, including social workers. Sometimes people want to die in Nigeria not because of depression, but because they are hungry. So sometimes a social worker may be contacted to talk to you as well, to help you out of your situation. So it's very important that you have those numbers and give it to your counselors in school, that these hotlines are for suicide prevention. And then a bit about anxiety. Like I said, most anxiety is normal at your age. Being anxious about your looks, about your height, about your weight, all those things are normal. They will blow away when you get older, okay? They are going to blow away. But sometimes anxiety at this age too can be problematic. And that is when we need to see a doctor. And then I've outlined those features, those types of anxiety disorders that one could have. I don't want to go into the details of all these. But it is important to know the signs. When somebody is having an anxiety disorder, they have what we call palpitations. You can feel your heart beating. Right now as you are sitting, I'm sure you don't know that your heart is beating. we know, we assume, but you are not feeling it beating. When we have palpitations, you can actually feel it. You can hear the boom, boom, boom of your heart. When you start hearing that, you are having what we call palpitations, and that usually occurs when one is anxious. Of course, that can happen when you also exercise. When you run a long distance, you start feeling your heart pounding. Okay, that is perfectly normal. But when you are sitting, you are not exercising, and your heart is pounding, probably some anxiety symptoms are coming in. Of course, when you are sweating excessively, this may be a sign of anxiety. Trembling or shaking, dry mouth are some of the features. Difficulty in breathing. The person feels as if they're going to choke, that they can't breathe anymore. They get breathless. Okay, they may also have chest pains and several other symptoms. Many symptoms. Anxiety gives you all sorts of symptoms. When you go to a doctor, they're usually tired of you because you talk about too many symptoms, they can't put you in any diagnosis. Okay, so we usually take the experts to know that this is all about anxiety. Usually, if this is going on, what do? Like I said earlier, talk to somebody knowledgeable. Not just your friends. Talk to somebody knowledgeable, your parents, your guardians, your counselors, teachers, pastors, health workers. All these people are able to help you when you have anxiety symptoms. And then you may have to see a doctor. And in the very rare cases, you may have to see a specialist like me. But most people with anxiety will have been taken care of by all these people that I mentioned earlier through their counseling. But those who really have a severe disorder may eventually have to see someone like me. I highlighted use of alcohol and drugs because that is extremely common at your age group. Most drug use activities start in adolescence, and you are all adolescents. That is the age that people begin to use drugs. I think from 3, you'll be like, in those days, you'll be like 14, 15. The way to announce that you have become a big boy, when we were in Loyola still wearing green, like those young guys, to announce that you have arrived as a big boy, you start drinking beer in Form 3. Okay? The beer is the minimum you can drink to show that you have arrived. The really more adventurous ones, we drink and smoke from Form 3 because they've become some sort of senior, okay, because they have juniors, year 1, year 2 behind them, okay? But usually that's the beginning of the downward slope in the life of several of those young people who start doing that. Luckily, some of us didn't get to partake in that at all, and it's so clear those who will turn out well are the ones who didn't drink or smoke, while those who didn't do so well are the ones who started drinking and smoking at that age. The reason being that the brain is so premature or not matured yet at that age. So any vice that you start at 14, 15 is more likely to be permanent. That is one place you don't want to say it shall be permanent. So you don't want to start any vice at 14, 15, 16. Smoking, drinking, don't touch it at all. In fact, one of our studies shows that if you don't drink before you are 21, you have protected a lot from most of the problems of alcohol. That means if you drink before you are 21, you are 4 times likely to have all the problems that alcohol can cause human being. Your heart problem, liver problem, all those problems. If you drink before you are 21, that is because the brain is still growing. So if you drink, the brain changes to accommodate alcohol in your life, and oftentimes on a permanent basis. So please don't use drugs while you're young. In fact, don't use ever. And I'll show you some pictures that will let you know that it doesn't matter the age, just don't use. Anytime you start, I give you 3, 4, 5 years. If you use actively, the change will occur, will be so dramatic in you, and you will see those changes in some of those pictures. What are those drugs that people commonly use these days? This was in 2017 by UNODC. About 10.6 million Nigerians use cannabis. That is marijuana, Igbo, okay? What other names do people call Igbo? Weed, thank you very much. They also call it weed. Of course, there is cough syrup, which is codeine, 2.6 million people in a year, or 2.4 million. Tramadol, 4.6 million people, that's the opioid group. And then some inhale petrol, they inhale kerosene, about 300,000 people. Some also inhale methylated spirit, okay, and other menthol products. And the sad news is that Oyo State is one of the most drug-ridden states in Nigeria. There are three of them: Oyo, Lagos, and Gombe. Gombe is understandable, is a war zone close to Borno, so most of the people live from there to Gombe. But Lagos and Oyo shows that we are sort of metropolis, we're cosmopolitan, and there is access to all sorts of drugs in these two states. So please be careful. Don't join the group of those who are going to go downslide in their life by trying any one of these substances. They really don't help. 1 out of every 4 drug user in Nigeria is a woman. So the message is not only for the boys, the girls also need to be careful, because more girls are beginning to use drugs now than ever before. It used to be a man thing, but now it's everybody's thing. Of course, there are several other drugs that people abuse. Cocaine in this group of stimulants. This is a picture of somebody preparing to sniff cocaine. Ecstasy and some of the other newer drugs, amphetamine-like drugs, they're actually tablets. So oftentimes you don't even know that you're about to use something very dangerous and something that could threaten one's life. So please be careful. Don't collect drugs for headache from your classmates. All medications you will take should either be from your parents or from the hospital. There's popularly now, most places don't sell it anymore, at least most decent pharmacies, Benylin with codeine. Our generation were raised with Benylin with codeine, but we never knew that it could make people high. But these young ones have found another use entirely for the codeine. And that is, codeine is an opiate, just like heroin, tramadol, and the rest. So it actually makes them feel good. So if you see a young man with a bottle, possibly with Coke, it looks like Coke, but will have diluted it with codeine, and then they go about with the bottle all day. And the person is looking half asleep, half awake. Most likely is jonesing on codeine, is loading himself on codeine. So they take the bottles around, and you think it's the weather that is so hot that they have to drink every time. Okay? Please avoid this. The codeine will destroy the brain, and it can actually also kill if used for too long. And then we also know about tramadol. Several young people have died from tramadol overdose. What tramadol does is to depress your ability to breathe, and the individual simply dies. We've also had people who had seizures, convulse after using excessive doses of tramadol. And that is happening among our young people. So stay away from any tablet that is not prescribed by a doctor or not given to you by your parents. Now, some of the drugs are mixed. We have, and then they have several street names, such that if they're talking about it in your presence as an older person, you may not even know what they're talking about. Okay? For instance, cannabis has several street names. That includes Igbo, Indian hemp, skunk. Sometimes they just shorten the skunk to SK. Okay, there's purple, there's Arizona, there's Colorado, and the potency is increasing along that line. So the regular Igbo that our older generation smoked is nothing compared to what people are smoking now. And that is why they end up in psychiatric ward faster. They end up within a few weeks to months of using Colorado, most people end up with a psychiatric illness. So please stay away from all this. School shoes target women. Men also use it, but because it's sweet, you know, he has cranberry juice, he has juice. Women like sweet things, they like juice and all that. But in all this mixture, there'll be gin, that's spirit, and then there'll be extract from cannabis. Boiled cannabis, the extract, which means it's going to be very concentrated, they mix it up and use that to form squishy. And squishy is sold in virtually every major bus stop in Nigeria, or at least in the southwest, every major bus stop. And it's a terrible drug to get used to. Of course, there's codeine, there's tramadol, there's cocaine. So please, boys and girls, be aware of this. I've had a young boy whose first exposure to tramadol was because he had a headache while he was in school. It was just an innocent complaint to the friend. I have a terrible headache. He said, oh, let me give you something, it will help you. And what he gave was tramadol. Of course, tramadol will take care of headache. So he felt better, but rather than just better, he felt high. He felt good with it. And of course, he continued to ask for more. And those ones knew what they were giving him, and then he kept on supplying until he had a seizure while in class. Secondary school student, SS1 pupil of a private school. So all these things are happening in our schools, and I'm sure you know those boys who are high on something also in your school. Okay? Please don't join them. Now look at the following pictures as I close. The one on the left is the person before they started using drugs. After about 3-4 years of using drugs, look at how they look. Look at the dramatic change. Now, this change is not only in their physical appearance. Their lungs, their hearts are also changing in the same way, becoming old suddenly and becoming so impaired such that such people, they die before their time. They die rapidly. And that is what drug use does to people. You can see the change from a good-looking woman to the very suddenly old and woman on the other side. Okay? This is what drugs do to people. Even young people. I've had young boys that come in looking very horrible. And then they stay with us for 2 months, 3 months. And someone else will sit there and say, no, it's not that boy that the brother did, it's the same person. Because drugs will make you look horrible when you are being admitted. The moment we treat for like 2-3 months, the person looks like a normal human being again. Okay? So it's a terrible thing to be addicted to any drug. And it's so easy to get addicted if you start young. If you start anytime before 21. So please don't go around any drug. If you start even under 21, there is still trouble. It's just that there is more trouble when you start very early. This person was a multiple Grammy Award winner. I mean, she's a big star, but her star didn't shine for long. Just suddenly got dimmed and she died. Okay? Drugs killed her. She died of overdose of alcohol and Valium and some other drugs. That is another way to die from drugs. Overdose. Overdose almost always get to kill young people. And the person who introduced her to drug was her friend. Actually, her boyfriend. Okay? So don't say, I love him, so I'll take cannabis with him. Like Dr. Midira said earlier. You don't say, because he's my friend, I'll join him in what he's doing. Okay? You may be the one that will die first. This person's boyfriend is still alive. But she got introduced to drugs by the boyfriend, and then she went rapidly into it, and then she died from an overdose. So please don't join anyone who has decided to go that way. She was also multiple Grammy Award winner, the best musician of all time as far as female recording is concerned. Up till now, no one has even come close. Of course, she died from drug overdose in an hotel room as well. Combination of alcohol, Valium, and some other stuff, okay? And when people start using drugs, they start with one, but they keep adding others. They keep adding. And the more you add, the more likely you will die suddenly. Okay, she also died. Unfortunately, the daughter has passed on from the same overdose as well, from drug overdose. So please don't start. And this guy was the best guy around when we were growing up. He was the best musician around. His name is Majek Fashek. I mean, he sang the best songs. If you still play songs now, they are still fantastic. But he started using drugs. He started with cannabis, with Igbo, and then went to the US and started using cocaine. From cannabis to cocaine to heroin to other things. Ultimately, before he took ill recently, I'm not sure if he passed on, he was last seen begging on the streets of Lagos for food. He was begging people for 100 naira so that he can eat. He was a mega superstar, okay? So there are some lifestyles you don't copy. Naira Marley may seem to be making waves. I give him 5-6 years. You will not be proud to be called a Malian. When you see him in another 5-6, maximum 10 years, if he continues with his current lifestyle, you will even want to associate with that name anymore. Okay? So please don't get carried away by the star status of the young people around you. Okay? And only copy those who are doing the right thing, not people doing all sorts of negative things in the society. So we have talked about being weird, and the fact that being weird is not weird. We are all weird to an extent, okay? But if you think you have feelings that are completely strange, you think they are strange, talk to somebody who should know, talk to your parents, and they'll be able to confirm this for you, whether it's strange or not. I once had a young boy who was going to make a presentation in church. I think maybe it was around 7, 8 at the time. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I asked him why. He said, oh, I don't know the word, but I'm feeling, and I said, anxious. He said, yes, that I'm feeling anxious. So, and I said, that is good. Everybody feels anxious when they have to make presentation. He said, really? Do you feel anxious when you want to go up and talk? I said, because he knows I talk in church. I said, yes, I also feel anxious, but people don't know. So that day too, people will not know that you are feeling anxious. Just try and go, and you will do it. And he said, okay, I'll give it a try. And he did very well. Most times we think we are the only ones who are having certain feelings. But oftentimes, it is shared by everybody. But because we don't tell ourselves, we don't know that one is going through something else. So if you're feeling anxious, it's nothing bad. Talk about it. And then if it's more than normal, then you may need to seek treatment for that. Finally, say completely no to drugs. Let me hear you say no to drugs. No to drugs. Thank you very much for your attention. Ashi.